We are the Luehmann Circus. We're a family of 5, almost 6, because there's one in her belly. And we like to talk about life, we like to talk about faith, and honestly, all the stuff that comes with both of those ginormous topics.
Today, we're going to talk to you about sex and how being Christians actually hurt our sex life more than help it.
We have been married for 9.5, almost 10 years, and going into our marriage, we were very steamy. There was a lot of touching, kissing, stuff like that, but no intercourse. And so,
we didn't have sex.
Don't laugh at that word, intercourse, scientific, look it up. And so we didn't have sex before marriage, and we didn't do it because honestly, we were Christians, and our whole lives were pretty much like, oh, don't have sex before marriage. It'll ruin your sex life when you get into marriage.
Right.
And
it was a way of it was a way of honoring God, and it was a way of honoring God's way, and it was a way of protecting also your sex life once you got married. So we didn't, but I didn't grow up as a Christian. He did. So I had sex before marriage.
So did I. We just didn't have it together.
Well, but it was different. Like, he had one girlfriend, and it was the one thing, and it was totally different. For me, it was more promiscuity. So, I didn't grow up a Christian, and I carried a lot of shame and a lot of guilt from that, because unfortunately, Christianity tells you to carry that shame and that guilt, and you don't have to. You really absolutely don't have to. And we'll make more videos about sex to talk about the different things and more healthy ways in which you can carry your sexuality. But we just wanted to share our story here. So we got married. I mean, before getting married, it was hard to keep our hands off each other, and we had to have boundaries. He had to leave. We tried not to be alone a lot, and
yes, we tried all those things. And, I'd have to run out of the room because it was gonna, And, so that's before the marriage. Huge sex drive for both of us, honestly. Right. And I was super excited because I was like, dude, broad can't keep her hands off me. Sex is going to be great when we get married. We get married in literally honeymoon. No sex drive from the wife. And I was like all sex drive. I had pent-up sex drive.
He had waited for so many years.
8 years of marriage, of not marriage. For 28 years of just, I'm just gonna wait, and it's gonna be fantastic and wonderful when I get married, and it's gonna be so glorious. And it sucked.
I know.
To be honest, nothing. I love you, but it was hard, and then mentally, for me to understand why she had no sex drive. I mean, she really had a sex drive coming into it, and I'm like, oh my God, she won't have sex with me, and clearly I really suck at it.
Right. He took it personal, it's because of me, and it had nothing to do with him.
Which is very hard to believe, right? By the way.
But it had nothing to do with him. It had to do with all of these ideas that I had been taught, that sex is for after marriage, but I had already transgressed that, and sex is a certain way, and I had already broken that. But I had spent all of this time trying not to have sex and making sure that I was pure for, since I got kind of serious about being a Christian. And your brain starts telling yourself that sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad. And it's not like because I said I do one night, my brain was going to be like, okay. It actually still felt not good. And the reason why it did feel like I had a sex drive before is because of the adrenaline of doing something that is, forbidden or whatever.
Well, and as a Christian male who pretty much abstained from sex for 99% of my life, I had always been told, man, when you get married, sex is going to be great, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be wonderful, and you're going to have it. And as a dude, in your head, you're building it up that you're going to have sex all the time. You're going to have sex twice a day sometimes. Big stuff, right? And no. And so for me, I'm a self-deprecating person anyway, and having done some counseling and understanding that I am, what is the word? I was going to say bipolar. I'm not, always a possibility, but I rely on you. What is my
Codependent.
So when I have that going on with me and then she's not responding with the sex drive, all I can think of, oh my gosh, I'm horrible, and how do I...
And you're failing.
I'm failing, and then how can I control the situation in any way? And I would shame her and guilt her and do things that were terrible.
It was like not
it wasn't
intentionally,
purposeful, but I would.
But there was this like shame and guilt, and it was part of the culture that we were surrounded by. So with all this guilt and all this shame, we didn't want to talk about it because newlyweds that waited were supposed to be having sex and loving it and being like
church leaders.
Crazy, and we,
like it's supposed to be perfect.
Right. And yeah, your life is supposed to be perfect, and it wasn't. But finally, we mustered up the courage to talk to a pastor and his wife about this, and so we told them, and they told us that it was normal, and that because we tell people sex is bad, sex is bad, sex is bad, some brains just kind of like stay in that mindset.
It's hard to flip a switch.
Right. And we were like, okay. And then the advice that they gave us was just keep having sex. They said, Joe, you have to make yourself keep having sex with your husband. It'll get better with time. And it'll be great because then he's not going to lust after other women. You're not going to cause him to stumble. All of these things that we say in the Christian world. And
none of that honestly was even happening. I mean, I wasn't lusting after women or stumbling, and it
but
wasn't
to avoid that he might start stumbling and he might start...
That wasn't on her. Like it was.
No,
it wasn't
not
her problem if I choose to do those things.
And those things were not happening.
And it wasn't just like sex will get better. It's like you'll just keep having more sex, and eventually you're going to like it.
And it's going to be fun.
You're going to like sex.
But it didn't.
No.
Actually, it made it way worse because now what wasn't explained to us was that consent happens inside of marriage too. And when you're having sex without consent, that is the definition of rape. So I started actually resenting him more because I was making myself have sex with someone that I didn't want to have sex with instead of addressing the root issue of why I didn't want to have sex. But I was just making myself have sex, and he was just
hated it.
He hated it. Yeah, because he could tell that I didn't want to. And honestly, the right thing to do would have been to go to a therapist, to talk to a sex therapist, to address the underlying root causes of what was happening inside of me and what was happening inside of him and all of the lies that we were telling each other. But instead, we just kept having sex against our will. He didn't like it because he could tell I didn't want to. I didn't like it because I didn't want to. So our sex life was actually suffering more and more and more. And it was getting worse and worse and worse because we were resenting each other. He was resenting me for not wanting, and I was resenting him because I felt like he was making me. Though he didn't officially make me, but I felt like I had this responsibility to keep him pure, which it's not my responsibility at all.
So we are at that point in our marriage, sexually in our marriage, where I can't stand her and she doesn't want to have sex with me because all I feel is let down, I feel lied to, and I'm angry, and I'm frustrated, and I take all that stuff out on her, thinking that if she actually wants to have sex, it's gonna fix those things in me, like it was her problem, and I would put that on her. And it took a lot of time to actually understand that we were gonna have to have some hard conversations and some really difficult times. For something to change.
And that's the thing. Like, we realized that we had never actually had honest conversations about how we were really feeling. Like, it was just this unspoken, really uncomfortable, awkward thing in our life and our marriage. And it was just this, the only thing that was spoken is, I'm sorry I don't have a sex drive. And him saying, I'm really frustrated that you don't. Like, is there something wrong with me? And so finally we decided, okay, we're gonna have to have these hard conversations and really dig into what is going on inside of us, and realizing that I was carrying a lot of shame and a lot of guilt from sex, not sex with him, sex period. Like, sex made me feel ashamed and guilty and dirty. There are some really harmful ideas about sex and about what sex is and how having a sex drive even is wrong. And you carry all this guilt and this shame, but having a sex drive is human. From the age that you start having it, like, you don't have to have a sex drive only when you're married, because it doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know, your body doesn't react that way. It's actually developmentally normal and natural for a teenager to have a sex drive. It's normal, but that's not what we were told. That's not what we, you know, the sex education that you get is more sex is bad, don't do it, but it's really good after you get married.
Right.
Well, that's not true. Sex is good, period. Sex is good. Can it be used for bad things? Absolutely, like everything good. But to say that sex is bad is really harmful, especially because a lot of that pressure gets put on women.
Well, yes, a lot of that pressure does get put on women. But also, growing up, experiencing the changes and the difference in hormones and the excitement that comes from seeing a woman or a handsome gentleman or something like that, telling people to suppress that and not giving them an outlet and not telling them, hey, this is where your mind should be. If they are a Christian or if they are anybody of any religion and they're told that sex before marriage is terrible, well, talk to me about it. Like, let's have some conversations. What is really happening? Like,
yeah, but asking them to simply suppress all of that is not healthy. Like, just suppress it until you get married.
It's damaging.
That is not healthy. It's damaging. We should instead teach them what to do with those feelings and how to explore sexuality before you're married and how to explore sexuality in a healthy way when you're a teenager, because there are ways to be healthy, to explore sexuality and understand sexuality and know that you having a sex drive and desiring to have sex is normal, especially for women. What do we were talking about this a couple nights ago. Like, what do we tell a woman that says, I love having sex? What do we call her?
a slut.
What do we call a man that loves having sex?
Awesome.
Exactly. And those ideas that are being told outside, like, that is in society at large, not even just Christian society, but like that is a society at large. If you pile onto that also the Christian values of sex is bad, unless it's only marriage, don't even think about it, don't even have these ideas. If you think of a boob, like, close your eyes and pray, well, of course you're gonna have really damaging and bad ideas and thoughts associated with sex, and that is going to come out in your marriage unavoidably. It's going to come out in your marriage. So we realized we had to have some hard conversations and be honest and dig deep and be like, where is this coming from? Like, why do I feel this way? Like, why can't I have a sex drive? Like, that is not normal.
So this is where we're at now. We are still having conversations, long conversations, sometimes awkward, because it's about being vulnerable and to talk about your sex life. There's egos that come into play. It's not easy, and you have to set yourself aside, and you have to be vulnerable, and you have to talk about what's really going on, and those conversations. And sometimes most of the time they're not fun, you know, because you have to end up digging really deep into your past, into who you are, for why these things are happening. And
I'm doing work personally, like myself, to heal and to change the chip in my head of these ideas of sex and these ideas of negative ideas about sex and me being a sexual person. Like, I'm changing my chip, so I'm working privately, individually, and he's working on his codependency and on not taking it personally and on understanding that that this has nothing to do with him as a man. And so we're working separately and then having conversations together, and it's hard and it's complicated. But our point in making this video was to say, look, we know of a lot of couples that have issues in their sex life as married couples, Christian married couples that have issues in their sex life, but they don't talk about it. They just simply don't talk about it. Women make themselves have sex, and men are just growing frustrated, and that is only going to keep damaging and damaging and damaging your relationship until you make an effort to actually say, you know what? As awkward as this may be and as uncomfortable as this may be, we have to sit down and have really hard conversations and heal, actually heal this doesn't have to be the way that your life is. You can heal.
We thought we were alone for so long.
We did.
And
We thought everybody had great sex lives because that's what we were told. We told two couples. We told them like, we're struggling with our sex life, and both of them were like, really? We don't. We have
Just
amazing sex. We're amazing.
fight
It's
through
all
it.
the time.
Ours is great. Yours can get good too.
And then later on, we find out that that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
People are just not comfortable saying mine isn't good either, and it's fine. That doesn't mean you don't love each other. That doesn't mean God is not blessing your marriage. That
doesn't mean you suck at sex.
No, it simply means that there is some deep rooted lies that you have to address. It means that there is some healing that needs to take place. It might mean that you need therapy, but it doesn't mean that you're broken and that you're wrong and that you married the wrong person. It doesn't mean any of that. It simply means there is work to be done.
So with that, please, if you're able to watch this, then subscribe and follow us. You can check it out up here. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We would love for you to just check out. If you want to like our videos, please like our videos.
Well, thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions or if you want to comment or if you want us to listen to your story, please do message us on any of those platforms. And we will be happy to get back to you. Thank you for watching.
Bye.